All right guys, Sunline Pro here, Todd Castledine. I'm gonna talk to you all today about the 3 biggest myths that I think are when it comes to line, fishing line, and what's kind of been told to us. And I'm here to disprove it all, okay? I'm gonna start off with do we start off with number three or number 1? I'm gonna go with number 1. I'm gonna go with number 1 because it's probably the one that people are shocked about the most, okay? Cranking. The cranking one is the most interesting one to me. I read all the magazines, I read all that stuff. You gotta go light line, you gotta make this crankbait go deeper. You know, that's the whole deal. We gotta make the crankbait go deeper. And that was our entire strategy from all I ever heard. The problem is I didn't sometimes need this crankbait to go deeper. So I was always putting on 12-pound line, 10-pound line, stuff like that. And then I was going out there, and after all day long fishing it, an 8, 6, 8, 10-pounder would bite this thing and I'd break off a lot of times. And that was just on open water stuff. A big one's gonna come up here, you know, a 10-pounder eats this thing different. A 2-pounder eats it like this. A 10-pounder inhales the entire thing. So it's got his mouth around the line, all this stuff going on. Well, I didn't like losing 10-pounders. I don't like losing any fish. And so I was like, man, I would kind of creep up with 14-pound line, you know, and try it there, and then 16-pound line. And to be honest with you, I started fishing with my buddy Russell Cecil, big time crankbait fisherman and everything. And he was like, just put 20 on there. And I was like, really? So I started throwing 20-pound Sunline sniper for all my cranking stuff. This has been 10 years. I've never broke off on a crankbait fish. I get all my crankbaits the depth I want them to. What I was giving up is, yes, 10 to 12-pound line will make your crankbait go 2 foot deeper. The difference is nowadays, instead of throwing a 6XD, right? This is a 6XD and I can get a 6XD 16 to 18 foot at its deepest. If I want to go to 20, I just throw an 8XD. If I want to go to 25, I just throw a 10XD. And so what I realized is I was like, with now, our baits allow us to reach the depths we want without having to give up things in line. I wasn't gaining any advantage. The only advantage you gain was getting it 2 foot deeper. And then you give up 10 other things with having light line. And I was going, I don't want to give up those. So now I just go 20. I can throw it around brush piles, stumps, catch big ones, throw it all day long, not have to retie. I don't have to do all the things. A lot of people don't like to talk about backlashes. You're gonna backlash lighter line more often than you will thicker line. 2, the way you crank most of the time is, we got a perfect day today, it's dead calm. But a lot of times you're gonna be cranking into the wind, and you're usually gonna have to, the way we have to, you know, position our boats, you're gonna have to throw into the wind. So we're throwing into the wind, you get a little bit more backlashes, you get a little bit more damage to your line. All those things are gonna contribute to you breaking off. So I just don't see any advantage really in going in lighter line. And I've seen nothing but advantages in going to a little bit thicker line. You know, Sunline's a little bit different. I always tell everyone, I finally saw a big time pro the other day talk about this for the first time ever. That wasn't with Sunline, but he actually mentioned that pound test line is not what it used to be. And Sunline goes off the old standard. And so what I always tell people is don't look, and I'll show you, don't look at when it just says 20. Because all you're doing is just taking their, you know, that it says 20. 20 means nothing to me. Right here it says diameter, right? Diameter is what you care about. So a lot of companies can put 20-pound test line on any diameter, right? So you think you're getting a lighter line, but you're really not. The diameter might be the same. So remember, always look at diameter. That's more important than what it actually says. And so that is probably the biggest myth when it comes to cranking, you know, having light line, things like that. And I've got other crankbaits out in my box. Other than all my bigger cranks, 4.0s, 8.0s, 6XDs, 8XDs, 10XDs, all have 20. I might go to 18 for a 2.5 and maybe 16 to 14. I don't think I crank anything with 12. It's usually at least 14 to 16. And I see no difference in the action of the bait or any of that stuff, especially on square bills. Square bills, you're not gonna get anything. You might get 6 inches more in depth. So like I said, you're giving out a lot to gain very little. So that is myth number one. This is the other one, braid. This, I have braid obviously on my frog. This is 60-pound plasma braid, okay? I've never thrown 50-pound. I've done it once or twice. I'll be honest with you, I've broke every single braid ever. I don't care what anyone says, you can break braid. It's very hard to break braid right out of the package, okay? The problem is we usually throw braid over stuff and around stuff and we keep it on our reels a long time. So if you don't mind changing braid every 3-4 months, you can use lighter braid. I still don't know the advantage to it though. There isn't one. This 60-pound braid is very thin. When I'm frog fishing, for the most part, I'd say 99% of the time, except one little way of in the paths, and I'll explain it, I'm this close to the bank. So if I want to make a cast, right, they're all talking about, oh, well, you know, smaller braid, you can cast it further. Well, I can cast it right there. I don't really want to throw my frog any further than that. I'm not going to get a good enough hook set. I'm not trying to throw 50 yards out there to catch a fish on a frog when I can be this far away from it. I don't have to fight him 50 yards. So the castability is not the issue, although people talk about it. I'm not worried about any of that. I don't want to break it off, and I want it to do what it wants to do. Like, we caught a bunch of fish today. I probably haven't retied this in a week, and I won't retire it today. And if I caught 50 fish on it, I'm not going to retire it after those 50 fish. I don't need to. And so once again, this braid will stay on this rod all year long, and it might start going into next year's. So the only time I've seen it matter is when I pad fish. And when I pad fish, yes, I'm trying to throw it as far as I possibly can. But once again, I think if I had 50-pound line, I might throw it 10 feet further. Well, 10 feet further when I'm throwing it 80 or 140 feet doesn't mean anything to me. And one, I really don't want to get bit on a frog in the pads 150 foot out. It happens, but in my opinion, that's where I just get a better reel. So I have really good reels. I have a big rod. I can throw it a mile. And so even when they blow up out there, the further you get them to bite out there, the less chance you have to hook them, right? It just gets harder and harder. So I don't care about throwing it that far. Skipping it, I can skip this thing easy. So once again, and I will say, going back to, I would never fish less than 60 pound on pads. Pads are probably the hardest on line there is. And so, yes, if you go pad fishing all day long and you hook one at the end of the day, there's a good chance you're gonna break it, because that pad eats at that line, because you're just rubbing over pads for hours and hours and hours. But for the most part, once again, I have 50 and 30 pound line, but I rarely use it. I have some 50 pound line, and I used to carry it in 30 pound for top waters like this. This is 60. One, I'm real bad about, I don't have a bunch of money where I can just go and use a whole bunch of reels and have 500 reels with different kind of braid on all of them. I interchange my reels all the time. So this is 60, this is 60. If something happens and I want to put 2 frogs on, I'll just take this reel off, put it on a frog rod. I can throw, this is my top water rig. I can throw this a mile. I throw it for schooling fish. For schooling fish, you want to be able to cast a long ways. Once again, I can cast this a long way. I just believe in getting a better rod and a better reel and not giving up line, because I think the line diameter of going smaller to get a little bit further distance, I think you can change all that by the rod and the reel, and you're not giving up anything. I just don't like giving up stuff, okay? I broke out when we start going into fluorocarbon on stuff like this. This is my sight fishing rig, okay? I know I have a swim jig on here, but I was sight fishing all year long with this. This is 30 pound fluorocarbon, okay? I just switched it right to a swim jig. A lot of people like to throw braid on their swim jigs. I sometimes do, but I can get away with 30 and throw it in some nasty stuff and I can throw it in a little bit more open water, like skipping docks and things like. I don't like to throw that when I skip docks, marina stalls, things like that with braid. I'd rather do it fluorocarbon. So I just keep 30 pound on this all the time. And like I said, I do so many things with heavier line on worming and things like that. And over the years of fishing with people in the boat, with co-anglers and stuff like that, I can't tell you how many co-anglers ask me. One of the number one things they ask me, what size line are you throwing? Because I'll be getting a ton of bites, and I would say, I'm not even gonna say 99% of the time, 100% of the time, I have heavier line on than they do. And they're always shocked when I tell them, and sometimes it's by a lot. Like they might be throwing 12 pound and I'm throwing 20, and I'm getting, I'm 10 to 1. And they're just shocked because they're like, you know, like, I thought you had to use light line. And I'm like, I think it's overrated. And so I have it on a little bit heavier rods. I can set the hook harder. I can do all these things without giving up, losing fish, breaking off fish. I mean, I've done a lot of videos over YouTube stuff over the years, and I don't think you've ever heard me ever talk about breaking off fish. Like that's not the way we ever lose fish. Last one. This is the one I just adopted last year. I actually watched a Bassmaster Elite show, and I watched a guy have 50 pound braid on and all this stuff, and I go, I do not see the point in having this on a spinning rod. It makes no sense to me. But I'm one of those guys that's like, all right, after I got over the initial of like doubting it, I went and did it. So I've got 30 pound plasma on here with 18 pound fluorocarbon sniper. And I started throwing it on a big minnow, and I started throwing it in stuff that I would never throw a spinning rod in. And I normally wouldn't do it, right? But with the minnow and forward facing and all this stuff, I started watching what would happen and what I could do, and boat flipping 5-pounders and not breaking off. And there's a way I can do it. Well, what's funny is the amount of bites I started getting with 18 pound line, I started changing. And so now I've got some of this stuff, instead of going, at first it was 8 pound, I'd break off a little bit because like I said, we were catching giants and I'm real bad about retying. Then I went to 10, then I went to 12. Now I'm even up to 14, and I have not seen the bites diminish. So I'm going, once again, my whole theory is I want to use as heavy a stuff as I possibly can, because I want to take out all the variables of why I lose fish or break off fish or any of those things. If I'm going to get the same amount of bites with 14 pound line as 12 pound line, no one in the world can convince me that 12 pound line's better. It's just not going, like, no, I want to throw the heaviest line possible if I'm going to get the same amount of bites. So I have even adopted that. And what's funny is on the action, when people throw like drop shots like this, you know, we want that worm to move around a lot. When we're throwing minnows, the action we want is actually the hovering action of it actually staying in the water column and not going down or coming up, or we want it staying out there as long. The lighter line will actually make your bait try to sink faster. So heavier line, in all reality, is better for most of the live scope stuff and minnows and things like that, because you're wanting it to hover out there. And like I said, the heavier line will make it hover more because of the drag. So like I said, a lot of times we see spinning rods, we hear cranking. We don't really think about the action of the bait anymore. We're thinking of, well, I've just been told to crank with lighter line. I've been told to put lighter line on spinning rods, things like that. I have tried to sit there and go, okay, let's stop thinking about that, that's what we've been told, and think about what we're actually trying to accomplish. And so that is why I've pretty much instituted all this now into, I think real hard about what I'm trying to do, and how I want to rig it up, and what I want my bait to do and not break off. And it's really changed the way I look at line. And so those are the 3 myths that I think have entered into this whole line thing with bass fishing. And I'm telling you, just try it. Just try a different way one time, and you'll be amazed at the amount of bites. You'll probably still get the same amount of bites with less worry about breaking off.